My name is Liam Kilby and I'm the Associate Director of MBA Recruitment and Admissions here at Said Business School, University of Oxford. This webinar is all about helping you submit the strongest, most competitive application possible for the Oxford MBA. Whether you're just getting started or already working on your materials, this session is designed to give you the practical tips and insights that can help take your application from good to great. Over the next 30 to 40 minutes, you'll hear directly from members of the recruitment and admissions team, people who review applications every day. They'll walk you through what we look for across each part of your application, including your academic profile, your professional experience, and your personal story. At Oxford, we take a holistic approach to admissions. That means we're not looking for perfection, we're looking for potential. We're looking for people who are reflective, driven, and ready to make the most of the Oxford MBA. We hope this session not only gives you the tools to craft a stronger application, but also helps you see why you belong at Oxford. The Q&A box is now live, so feel free to start submitting your questions at any point during the session. Our team will be responding behind the scenes and will also answer some live at the end.
Your academic profile is where we assess your ability to manage the academic demands of the MBA programme. We're not just looking at grades, we're looking at evidence of intellectual curiosity, commitment, and your readiness to contribute to a rigorous academic environment. The academic profile is made up of three components: your undergraduate degree and transcripts, your GMAT or GRE score, and, if required, proof of English language proficiency. We welcome applications from candidates with a first class or upper second class honours degree, or a GPA of 3.5 or above on a 4-point scale, or the international equivalent. That said, we understand academic paths vary. If your classification is lower, we'll take a look at the whole picture, especially your career progression, your test scores, and your ability to reflect and grow. Your subject area doesn't matter. We admit students from across the academic spectrum, from engineering and economics to history, law, and the arts. We value diversity in thought, background, and perspective. At the application stage, we're happy to accept a scan of your transcripts or even a screenshot from your university's online portal. Unofficial transcripts are absolutely fine at this point. Just make sure you've included your full academic record, not just the degree certificate. And finally, if your transcript isn't in English, be sure to upload a certified translation along with the original. Getting this right now helps us ensure a smooth review later. Submitting a valid GMAT or GRE score is a mandatory part of the Oxford MBA application. We do not offer waivers regardless of your academic background, previous qualifications, or professional experience. We'll accept either test, and we have no preference between the GMAT and the GRE. Both online and in-person versions are accepted equally. Choose whichever format and test style suits you best. You'll need to upload your score report when you submit your application. Even if you've registered Said Business School to receive your scores directly from GMAT or ETS, we'll still ask you to upload your own copy to the application checklist. If your test score is missing or your test is expired, we won't be able to consider your application. In terms of expectation, there is no minimum score, but the medium GMAT in our current class is 680. For GMAT Focus, you will need an approximate score of 625. The median GRE is 160 in verbal and 160 in quantitative. A high score is helpful, but it doesn't guarantee a place, and a lower score won't automatically disqualify you. What matters is how well your test supports your overall application. If you've taken the test more than once, we'll consider your highest total score. Just remember to plan ahead. Scores need to be uploaded by the stage deadline that you're applying to. That means scheduling your tests in advance, especially if you're sitting the online version and waiting on official results. If you're a national of a non-majority English-speaking country, you'll need to demonstrate English language proficiency when you apply to the Oxford MBA. We accept several types of tests. The TOEFL with a minimum overall score of 110. The IELTS academic test with a minimum overall score of 7.5 and 7 in each section. All test results must be less than 2 years old at the time of your application deadline. This is a strict university requirement, and we cannot accept expired results or results that fall below the stated minimums. When applying, you must upload your test score report to the application checklist. If your scores are below the minimum or over 2 years old, you will need to retake the test and upload new results. IELTS General Training and IELTS Online are not accepted, only the academic version is valid. In some cases, you may be eligible to request an academic or professional waiver. To be eligible for the academic English waiver, you must have completed a full-time degree of at least 9 months at a recognised institution where both teaching and assessment were entirely in English, and you must have graduated within 2 years of your MBA start date. If you request this waiver, you must submit official documentation confirming the language of instruction. A degree certificate alone is not enough. We'll need a formal letter from your university. For the professional waiver, your role used English every day in a technical or professional environment using reading, writing, speaking and listening. And/or you worked for at least 2 years in a majority English-speaking country and your role ended within 2 years of your MBA start date. If you're applying under the professional waiver, you must submit a document that clearly explains how you used each component of English in your day-to-day work.
Your professional profile is where we get to understand your career to date, the experiences you've had, the impact you've made, and how your journey so far prepares you to contribute in the Oxford MBA classroom. We're not just looking for years of experience, we're looking for evidence of growth, leadership potential, and readiness to learn and collaborate in a globally diverse community. The professional profile is made up of 2 main components. Your CV, which summarises your roles, results and progression, and then your letters of recommendation, which gives us insight into how others see your contribution and potential. To apply for the Oxford MBA, you'll need to have a minimum of 2 years of full-time work experience. That can come from any sector, and we welcome applicants from consulting, healthcare, finance, NGOs, startups, creative industries, and many more. It's not just about where you've worked, we're looking for career progression. How have your roles grown in scope? How you have led projects, teams, or taken initiative beyond what was expected. Your CV should be clear, concise, and no more than 1 page. Use bullet points, avoid jargon, and focus on impact, not just your responsibilities. If you've worked across borders with global teams or in diverse environments, make sure that's reflected. And finally, remember that your CV is one of the first things we read, so make sure it connects with your wider application story. Another important part of your application is the post-MBA career plan, and this is a key section of your application. We're not expecting you to have everything figured out, but we do want to see that you've thought carefully and critically about what you want to do next. Your career plan should show that you've reflected on the experience you already have, and that you've researched your target industry or role, and that you understand how the Oxford MBA will help you close the gap. We're looking for a plan that's realistic, well-informed and ambitious in the right ways. If you're pivoting sectors or geographies, explain why and how you're preparing for that transition. Just as importantly, we encourage you to include a realistic plan B. This shows adaptability and that you've considered multiple paths to your goals, which is exactly the kind of mindset that helps students thrive during the MBA. As part of your application, you'll need to submit 2 letters of recommendation from either a professional or academic referee. Your referees don't need to be your direct manager, but they should be people who you've worked closely with and know you well. Ideally, they'll be individuals who can offer a thoughtful, honest view of your contributions, character and potential. Once you enter their details in the online application, your referee will automatically receive an email with a link to complete the reference form. This includes a short competency rating section and a space for a letter-style response explaining their assessment in more detail. It's your responsibility to ensure both letters are submitted by your stage deadline. We can't review your application without them. A quick note, we can only accept references submitted from a valid professional or institutional email address. Strong letters of recommendation really do help us understand your story.
The final part of your application is your personal profile, and this is where you can really distinguish yourself. This section gives us insight into who you are, your values, your goals, and what you'll bring into the Oxford MBA community. At Oxford Said, we don't just build a class, we build a cohort, a group of individuals who are diverse in background but united by their curiosity, drive, and potential for impact. This is your opportunity to go beyond your credentials and show us the person behind the application. So let's take a closer look at the elements that make up your personal profile. The personal statement is short, just 250 words, but it's one of the most important ways you can bring your application to life. It's a key part of your overall narrative. The prompt is simple. Tell us something that is not covered in your application, which you would like the admissions committee to know about you. But while the question is simple, it's not optional. There's no single right approach. Some of the strongest essays we read are the most personal and reflective, the ones that shows who you are, not just what you've done. We encourage you to use your own voice and be authentic. We're not looking for perfection. We value clarity, storytelling, and thoughtfulness. When we review your personal statement, we're looking for clear communication, leadership potential, analytical thinking, and most importantly, your fit within the Oxford MBA community. Whether your story is quiet or bold, personal or professional, make it real. This is your chance to speak directly to us. Take it. The online assessment, delivered through a platform called Clear Talent, is your chance to show us how you think on your feet, communicate under pressure, and let your personality come through, all in your own words. You'll be asked to complete 3 short video-based questions. These are randomly selected competency-based prompts that focus on the kinds of qualities we look for in Oxford MBA candidates. Once you submit your application and upload both your referee details and CV, a link to the online assessment will be emailed to you, usually within 24 hours. We recommend completing those sections early so you have plenty of time. You can practice as much as you want in the Clear platform before starting your real assessment. We highly recommend using the practice environment. Once you begin the real questions, you'll get 20 seconds to prepare and 90 seconds to respond. There's no retake option, so once you'll begin, you'll need to commit to each answer. Your responses don't need to be perfect, but they do need to be genuine. This is not an academic test. We want to see clarity, confidence, and character. Plan ahead. If you leave this until the last minute and run into technical issues, we may not be able to accept a late submission.
Throughout this session, we've talked through each part of the Oxford MBA application, from your academic record and professional experience to your career goals, references, essay, and online assessment. Once you've completed each section and submitted your application, our team will then begin reviewing it as part of the stage you've chosen. You can apply in any one of the application stages, but make sure everything is submitted and completed by the deadline of the stage you're aiming for. That includes your references and Kira assessments, so please leave enough time. There's no perfect stage to apply in. We look carefully at every application we receive in every round. Most importantly, make sure your application feels authentic, well prepared, and true to you. Thank you for joining us for today's session. We hope you found it helpful and that it's given you a clearer sense of how to put forward a strong Oxford MBA application. More than that, we hope it's helped you see why you belong at Oxford. We'll now move into our live Q&A, and this is your chance to ask us anything you would like, whether that's about the application process, scholarships, interviews, or life at Oxford. If you haven't already, just type your questions into the Q&A box. Some will be answered live on screen and others by members of our team behind the scenes. And if we don't get to your question today, don't worry. You can always email us at oxfordmba@sbs.ox.ac.uk and we'll be happy to follow up. So, let's get started.
Okay, welcome everybody. I hope that you are all able to see and hear me okay. And thank you very much for joining us for the webinar this morning. My name is Hannah Griffiths. I am one of the recruitment and admissions managers for the Oxford MBA. It's a pleasure to be here with you. What is the morning time for me? I appreciate I may have said good morning. I know that you'll be joining us from all around the world. So welcome to all of you at whatever time of day you find yourself at. And for the remainder of the session, I'm going to do my best to answer any questions that you may have, having watched the video about how to submit a strong application for the Oxford MBA. So do feel free to submit those via the Q&A function that you can see on the screen. I can see that we have a few in there already, so I'll make a start on working through those very shortly. My colleague Elena has joined in the background as well, so she is here to support. So if we do get inundated with questions, Elena will be helping out and she'll be typing some responses to you in the background. No such thing as a silly question. I know that a lot of you will be hoping to apply in the January deadline that's upcoming on January 7th. So do use this opportunity, take advantage of having members of the recruitment and admissions team here to answer the questions that you might have. And we will essentially just keep going until we get through all of the questions. Well, I say we'll keep going, we will stop after 1 hour. But essentially we'll do our best to get through all of the questions. And if questions do stop coming through, then we will finish up the session from there. So let's make a start. We've had some great questions come through on the Q&A. So I'm going to just start from the beginning and I am going to work my way through. So the first question that we have here is about the professional experience requirement. So somebody asking if they have 1 year of work experience, are they eligible to apply for the MBA? So the answer to that is currently no. The professional experience requirement is that you have a minimum of 2 years full-time at the point that you apply for the programme. And so essentially, if you are going to meet that requirement, so if you'll have 2 years full-time experience by September 2026, then technically, yes, you are eligible. But as things stand, if you just have 1 year of full-time experience, then unfortunately, you're not ready quite yet. I would take into consideration as well, if you are somebody who is earlier stage in your career, you do need to demonstrate to the committee that you have done quite a lot in the short period of time that you have been working. The average number of years of experience for our MBA cohort is usually 5 to 6. So we will have some candidates who join when they're just at the 2 year full-time requirement, but they are usually candidates who have had quite intense roles, who have managed to pack a lot in, had a lot of progression potentially within that 2 year period. So if you are quite early stage in your career and you are considering an application, just have a think about how you can demonstrate to the committee what you have managed to do within that time. The key thing that they're looking for when they're considering professional experience is making sure that you're coming to the MBA at the right time for you, so that you will actually be able to benefit from the programme, but equally that you'll be able to contribute once you're in the classroom. So we believe very strongly in creating a collaborative learning environment on the Oxford MBA, and so we do need to ensure that all of the participants within the classroom have enough experience to draw on, that they're able to contribute to conversation, debate, discussion that will take place in the classroom setting. So do bear that in mind if you are somebody who's earlier stage in your career and who is considering an application. Thank you for your question. Okay, so the next question we have here is in relation to the GRE, and this is somebody who's considering an application currently, but their GRE score is just under the average that is referenced on the website. So the person is asking if we would recommend a retake. So this is a very commonly asked question. In my role as a recruitment and admissions manager, I regularly have calls and conversations with prospective candidates, and frequently they will ask about the need to retake the GMAT or GRE. My guidance to anybody would be, if you feel that you have the potential to improve and increase your score, then you should absolutely consider retaking the test. The committee will look at the scores that you have in relation to the rest of your application. So it's certainly not the case that candidates' applications aren't considered unless they're above a certain threshold on the GMAT or GRE. So your application will be considered in full regardless of your scores. The committee are looking to make sure that your quantum verbal skills are within a percentile that will allow you to navigate the MBA curriculum at Said successfully. So that's the key thing that they're looking to ensure from your scores is, are you going to be able to cope with the academic content of the MBA? And so as a result of those things, there is a broader range of scores represented across the cohort than you would maybe anticipate. The reason I say that I would considering retaking if your score is below the median, and if you feel that you're in a position to push it up, is I think when you come to submit the application for the programme, you want to feel as confident and as happy as possible that the application is as strong as it possibly could be. So you want to ensure that there's nothing that you could have improved on, nothing that you would have done differently. And so if you are someone who's sitting there thinking, oh, if I just did a few more weeks of preparation retook, then I would be able to push the score up a little bit, then I would absolutely recommend doing so. That said, there are sometimes candidates who have taken the GMAT or GRE multiple times, sometimes maybe 5-6 times, and their score is coming out in and around the same in both the verbal and quant every time that they're taking it. And so if you are a candidate that falls into that bracket, then I would say submit with the scores that you have and just focus on the other components of the application and try to make those as good as possible. So unfortunately, there's no clear-cut yes or no answer to that question in terms of what you should do. Obviously, the stronger your GMAT or GRE score, the better opportunity you have to show the committee that you would be able to cope with the academic content of the programme. I would definitely flag as well, if you are someone that's keen on scholarship support for the MBA, academic strength does play quite a big role in selection for scholarships. So if that is something that is on your radar and you are keen to give yourself the best shot possible with securing a scholarship, then I would definitely recommend trying to get your GMAT or GRE score as close to the median for the cohort that you've seen on the website as you possibly can. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you very much for that question. Somebody here asking a question about the English language waiver. I'm guessing that this is in relation to the academic waiver. So asking if an official letter from the undergraduate institute stating that the medium of instruction is in English, will that do? Yes. So as referenced in the video there, if you are applying for an academic English waiver, it's not enough just to upload your undergraduate degree transcripts to show that your degree was taught in English. You do need to include a letter from the institution that you studied at that essentially confirms to the committee that your degree was fully taught and assessed in English. So you do need to submit that in addition to your degree transcripts, which you would have to upload in any case, just for the undergraduate degree requirement. So I hope that is helpful. Thank you. Another question here. Again, this is in relation to English language requirements. So this is asking about the potential to secure a conditional offer if you do have an IELTS or TOEFL score that does not meet the requirement that the school is looking for. So again, this is kind of similar to the GMAT GRE question. There's no easy yes or no answer. The school does sometimes make conditional offers to candidates. However, it's not a blanket rule, so I couldn't say for sure that you could submit with a TOEFL or IELTS score that's below the requirement, and that would mean that you would definitely get a conditional offer and would then be asked to just resubmit test scores. It does sometimes happen. So for some candidates, if they show real strength in all other areas of the application, and that is just kind of the one component of the application that's slightly lacking, then the committee will sometimes make a conditional offer where they'll ask a candidate to retake the TOEFL test and submit a new score. However, I couldn't say that with any level of guarantee. So you are taking a risk if you choose to apply with a score that is, in particular, if your score is quite a bit below the requirement. I think in the question that was sent through, it's referencing a TOEFL score of 105, which is, you know, quite a bit below the required score of a 110 in the TOEFL. So in that case, my strong recommendation would be to retake the TOEFL test in advance of submitting your application. The risk you take, obviously, is that if you choose not to do that in the hope that you get a conditional offer, and it doesn't play out that way, then you do have to wait until, you know, the next application cycle for the following year's entry to be able to apply again. So possibly not worth taking the risk when your score is that far below the requirement, I would say. Great question. Thank you very much. Another great question here. Thank you guys for sending through such good questions. So this is a question by somebody asking about reapplication for the MBA. So this is somebody who made it through to interview this time round, but unfortunately wasn't successful in their application, and so is looking for recommendations for reapplication. So the first thing is to say that we absolutely welcome reapplicants. We will regularly have candidates who are unsuccessful first or second time round, who will choose to reapply to the programme and who are then successful on maybe their second or third attempt at application. There are some slight changes to the application itself if you are a reapplicant. So the main one is that you will be asked to write an additional supporting statement where you outline to the committee anything that has changed since your previous application. I would say try as much as possible to have some tangible examples of things that you can include in that part of the application. You know, very easy things that you can do is, you know, for example, if you have retaken your GMAT or GRE and you've managed to increase your score, that's a very tangible change from your previous application. Any promotions that you may have had, any new projects that you may have worked on, professional responsibilities or opportunities that you may have had since the last application that you feel can demonstrate to the committee that you've been able to kind of further develop your technical skills, your soft skills, your leadership opportunities. If you've been doing any courses yourself offline, so any upskilling that you've done, any professional development that again you think demonstrates to them that you're someone that's committed to lifelong learning, to curiosity, all of these are things that are good to point out in that additional supporting statement that you're asked to write as a reapplicant. The other thing that I would say is do some reflection on your interview as well. You know, you should take real confidence from the fact that you made it through to the interview this time round. And that means that the committee felt on some level or to some degree that you were a good fit for the programme. And then potentially just maybe at interview there were some areas of your strengths professionally or personally or academically that didn't come across. So do reflect on the interview experience, have a think about maybe any areas that you felt you could have done differently, that you could have communicated things in a different way. But do take confidence, as I said, from the fact that you made it to interview this time round. So hopefully that is helpful. Thank you very much. Great question here from Chelsea. Thank you, Chelsea, for your question. So Chelsea is asking if we can... Do you know what, Chelsea? Actually, I'm going to come back to your question. Sorry, it is a great one, but I'm just conscious that the focus of the session is on the application itself. And your question is a little bit more kind of general around the MBA experience at Oxford. I do think it's a great question and the content will be relevant for people. But I'm going to come back to it at the end. I just want to make sure that we can get through the questions that we have that are kind of more application specific. And then I'll come back to yours in a little bit. Okay, so we'll come to the next question here. That is from Sanjana. I'm just going to flag before I get onto that as well. I can see that there's a lot of activity in the chat. If you can send your questions through via the Q&A function, that'd be really helpful. Sorry, it's difficult for myself and Elena to kind of navigate between the two and who's going to type an answer and who's going to answer live. So if you can send your questions through just on the Q&A memory function only. That's really helpful for us. So if you've put a question in the chat, if you can just copy and paste it into the Q&A, there's more of a possibility that I'll be able to answer it for you. Okay, so Sanjana's question here is about, again, test scores, so GRE scores this time, and asking if the GRE score is used as a metric to rule out candidates if it's below the median. A really great question. I think I've touched on this already. So the answer to that is no. So your application will be considered in full by the committee, regardless of the test score that you submit with. So we definitely don't filter out applications or just not look at certain applications if GMAT or GRE scores are below a certain number. We will consider the application in full. I think it's really important that we do that. There are sometimes obviously scenarios whereby somebody submits with GRE scores or GMAT scores that are below the median. And sometimes they don't tie in with the rest of their profile. So what I mean by that is you may have a candidate who has, for example, a quant score that is maybe lower than what we look for. But then you look at the rest of their profile and actually their undergraduate qualifications were kind of finance focused, and they maybe have a job that's very quant focused in terms of the work that they do day to day. And so in that case, as long as the score is within a percentile that the committee feel confident indicating that the student would be able to cope with the academic content of the programme, then they would possibly still admit that person without having as many concerns about the quant score being in a lower percentile. The converse of that obviously is if you have somebody who's maybe applying from a liberal arts background and has maybe a professional career that hasn't had kind of any finance focus or any quantitative focus at any point up to the point that they apply for the MBA. The committee may have more of a concern about somebody then in that case having a quant score that is lower, and maybe will have more concern around that person's ability to actually cope with the academic content of the programme. So that's why I think it's really important that we consider the applications in full, and so there is no kind of cut off if your GMAT or GRE score is below the median. So I hope that helps. Thank you very much. Okay, the next question here. So again, this is asking about test scores again, a very popular topic this morning. So this person is asking, how would you recommend that people from non-business backgrounds prepare to do the GRE and score highly? A really great question. I'm afraid, again, I'm not going to give a very definitive answer. I'm going to be very transparent and say I've never taken the GMAT or GRE, so I can't give any level of certainty about this. As a general rule, I would say definitely give yourself enough time to prepare. So if you are starting from scratch with either the GMAT or GRE, we recommend giving yourselves a minimum of about 3 months to prepare before you take the test for the first time. And then from there, I would definitely recommend giving yourself like a buffer in advance of the stage deadline that you are targeting. I think we find, talking to a lot of candidates, that through the preparation process, they regularly find that they are improving at the tests and they're taking practice tests and their scores are coming out pretty good. And then when they take the test in real test conditions for the first time, the score tends to come out a little bit lower than what they have been getting on the practice tests. And so oftentimes candidates will want to retake another time, sometimes, 3 times, 4 times in advance of actually applying for the programme. So with that in mind, I would definitely make sure that you give yourself kind of a good buffer from when you first take the test to the stage deadline that you're actually hoping to apply in, just in case you have the same experience and your score doesn't come out as high as you were hoping the first time that you take it. The other thing that I would say is, if you haven't any experience of taking either test before, do go online and see if you can find some practice tests for both the GMAT focus and the GRE. We don't have a preference for one over the other, and it is important, I think, that candidates, if they feel that they just have a level of comfort with one test more than the other, then do go with the one that you get that feeling for. So do take the time to explore both, do some practice tests, and then choose whichever test you feel gives you the best chance to come through with a competitive score for the programme. So that's best advice that I can give. Try out both, go with the one that suits you best, and then do give yourself plenty of preparation time, 3 months minimum, and then a good buffer in advance of the stage deadline that you're hoping to apply in as well. Great question, thank you. Okay. You touched on that already. This is a good question. Thank you for this. I'm not sure who sent it in. So this is a question more about professional profile. So this person is asking how the admissions team view internal role progression when formal promotion letters may not exist, but responsibilities and scope have grown. I would say that we view those very positively. In terms of your professional profile, progression is one of the key things that the committee look out for, and would definitely be included in what we would characterise a strong professional profile, in addition to things like maybe having some international exposure, any leadership opportunities that people have had across their career, and kind of broad exposure to different sectors, different clients, etc. as well. None of those things are mandatory, just to flag, but they are all things that we would look for in a candidate's CV and in their experience to date. And the more of those that you can demonstrate, kind of the stronger your professional profile will be seen by the committee. So as long as you can demonstrate on your CV, which is probably the main opportunity you have within the application to show internal progression that you have had, as long as you can demonstrate that in the CV and it's clear to the committee that you have been increasing the responsibilities that you've been given across your career, you've been given kind of additional opportunities to build out your skill set, to build out your knowledge in the sector that you're working in, and that's very clear in the kind of timeline that you outline on your CV within the organisation that you're in. I think that'll be viewed very positively by the committee. There's no requirement for you to include letters confirming that you've had an official promotion. We understand that different organisations and different sectors vary massively. Obviously within some sectors and some professions, there's very clear progression tracks that candidates can be on. And obviously in other sectors it's different, and it might just be, as you mentioned, that you are getting kind of internal progression, but it's not coming in the shape of an official promotion where maybe your job title is changing. The one good opportunity that there is to demonstrate that outside of the CV within the application is there is a section within the body of the application where you can write about your current role with a good level of detail. So essentially in that section, you can outline to the committee what your job looks like day to day, what your key responsibilities are, what your achievements have been, and what challenges that you've had. And so if you feel like you're not really able to showcase in the CV that you've been progressing because it hasn't been kind of by official promotions, then I would say utilise that section and make sure that you outline to the committee in that space the kind of internal progression that you have had if you don't feel it's necessarily reflected in your CV. So great question. Thank you very much. Okay, this is a good question as well. So this person is asking about the post-MBA plan section in the application. So asking the career plan questions don't specifically ask how the Oxford MBA helps me achieve my career goal. Where should I fit that in? So it's a good question. So in the post-MBA plan section, there are some guide questions that you will be asked to fill in, and there isn't one in that section that says, how is the Oxford MBA going to help you to do it? I think there is a question that's, I'm not going to remember it specifically now, but it's sort of, there's a question that asks you like why you think you're a good fit for the role that you're going for. And sometimes in that section, candidates will also outline kind of gaps that they have that they're looking for the MBA to help them fill. And they will reference kind of specific aspects of the Oxford MBA programme in that section. But I would say if you opt not to do that, the main opportunity that you will have to talk about the Oxford MBA specifically and the role that it can play in your progression will be at interview. So there's not really any specific section of the application itself where you're asked to talk about your interest in Oxford or why you've opted to apply for the Oxford programme specifically, but that will be something that will be discussed at interview. So certainly reflect on that and do have some specific examples of the components of the programme that you're interested in, any co-curriculars that you feel will support the transition that you're looking to make, how you plan to kind of utilise your time on the one-year MBA to make sure that your career transition is going to be viable and is going to be something that you're going to be able to make happen. So I would say reference it in that section of the post-MBA plan if you can, but don't worry if you can't. You will have the opportunity, should you make it through to interview, to discuss that with your interviewer in quite a lot of detail. Great question, thank you. This is a good question I'll answer quickly. So this candidate is asking, is the stage 5 deadline open to candidates who are not residents of the UK and EU? Yes, it is. So all of our stages are open to candidates globally. So we don't have, I think I know where that question is coming from. Sometimes schools have sort of a rolling deadline after their official stages have finished, where they maybe look to prioritise candidates who are coming from the UK or Europe where there won't be visa requirements, and so the timeline might work a little bit better. We don't have that at Oxford, so our designated 5-stage deadlines are open to all candidates globally. So you can absolutely apply in the 5th stage if that makes more sense for you. And here's another question. This is a question from Tiara. Thank you for your question. Again, asking about stage deadlines. So asking if it's possible to gain acceptance in stage 5 if they've already secured a fully funded scholarship for the MBA. So I'm guessing, Tiara, sorry, I'm not sure if you've sent through a question somewhere else and that my colleague Elena has answered. It is still possible to gain admission in stage 5. I presume when you say you have a scholarship that will fully fund the MBA, you mean that that's external to Said. So you've secured the scholarship yourself via an external organisation. As a general guide with stage 5, it's absolutely possible to gain acceptance to the programme at that point. At the start of the cycle every year when we're talking to candidates, we do recommend kind of making the January deadline, the stage 4 deadline, the latest that you apply in, because the reality with stage 5 is that it is more competitive than the other stages. There will be a smaller number of places available on the programme, and certainly if you are somebody that is really hoping to gain scholarship support from the business school itself to come and do the one-year MBA, stage 5 doesn't make any sense in that instance, as the bulk of the scholarships have already been awarded at that point. However, if you are a candidate, I think similar to your profile, who has secured full funding from somewhere to come and do the one-year MBA, then you can absolutely apply in stage 5, and as long as your application is strong and competitive, there will be some great candidates who are admitted in the 5th stage every year. So you absolutely can still go for that. Just bear in mind that it will be a little bit more competitive, well, probably considerably more competitive than some of the other questions. This is a good question as well from Bala. So this is again asking about the professional experience requirement. And we had somebody earlier in the session who was asking about being kind of the lower end of the scale in terms of professional experience. Bala's in a slightly different position. So they say that they have 8 years of professional experience as well as a master's degree in analytics, and is asking basically, are their years of experience too much? and in addition because they have a master's degree already. I would say absolutely not, Bella. So the average number of years of professional experience for our cohort at Said tends to be 5 to 6 each year. But as with all averages, there's a broader range represented across the cohort than you might anticipate. We will have some candidates that are at that kind of lower end of the scale, so who just about meet that 2 years of professional experience. But equally, we will have candidates who have 8, 9, 10, 11 plus years of experience by the time they come to the MBA, and they are absolutely still eligible for the programme. In lots of ways, I think if you're a more experienced candidate, it's all going to be all about how you frame that within the application. So firstly, obviously, you can make a strong case for the fact that your additional years of experience are going to allow you to contribute in the classroom on the MBA. You'll have a lot of experience to draw on, so that when you're in that classroom setting, that you'll be able to contribute to conversation and discussion that's going on within the classroom. You'll also be able to add value to the experience of your peers, depending on the sector that you're in. I'm sure there'll be some other students on the programme who are interested in that sector and potentially thinking to transition into that sector. So your years of experience working within that space will allow you to be able to support them and to share your kind of knowledge and your skill set with your peers as well. The key thing I think that you'll want to demonstrate in the application is that you're still going to benefit from the MBA at this point in your career. So you will want to do a little bit of reflecting on why it is that you still feel the need to do the MBA. What gaps do you have in your knowledge and your skill set that you feel the MBA is going to allow you to fill, and how are those things then going to help you make whatever transition or whatever steps in your career after the program that you're looking to make. But absolutely not a disadvantage by any means. As I said, we will definitely have people on the MBA every year who have 8, 9, 10, 11 plus years of experience by the time they come to join. Great question. Thank you very much. Okay, just going to take a look here. This is a good question. So this candidate is asking, what are some do's and don'ts with respect to demonstrating a fit to the Oxford SBS community? And this is something that we get asked regularly. I say when I talk to prospective candidates, one of the things people will often ask is, what does a typical Oxford MBA student look like? Or what are kind of the personality traits or the characteristics that the admissions committee are looking for through the application? And it's an incredibly difficult question to answer, because we do have a very, very diverse cohort at Said. Not just diverse from a nationality perspective, but very diverse from a diversity of thought perspective as well. So lots of candidates coming from different professional backgrounds, different sector backgrounds, lots of people who've had very, very different life experiences up to the point that they come to the Oxford MBA programme. So there's not one specific personality type that I think does well or is guaranteed entry. I think there are definitely some traits that a lot of our students do share, and if you can demonstrate these through the application, then they can help to show the committee that you would be a good fit for the Oxford MBA. I think curiosity is a really important one. One of the big benefits of the Oxford MBA is obviously that you're not just joining a standalone business school, but you're joining a business school that's embedded within a wider university. And so that means you have access to, a wealth of opportunity outside of the business school, in terms of, faculty, research, students studying other disciplines who you'll get to know through the college system, and all of those wonderful Oxford traditions that you can participate in, like the formal dinners and the balls and playing sports and joining societies for your college, etc. So I think if candidates can demonstrate through the application that they are sort of innately curious and they're very interested in, the opportunities that are available to them outside of the business school, or just kind of more, on a personal level, that they have kind of a love of learning, and that they're interested in things, that kind of curiosity can definitely stand you in good stead somewhere like Oxford. So I think that's a good one if you can demonstrate it. I think it's really important for us that our students want a collaborative learning experience. The programme at Oxford really only works if you have kind of 340, 350 people who are open to sharing their experiences with their peers on the cohort, but who equally are open to the experiences of others. And who want that, as I said, collaborative learning environment, who are very interested in being part of a very diverse group of people. And that will really stand you in good stead. So if you can demonstrate through the application that you are someone who enjoys collaboration, is interested in other people, I would say like a don't or a red flag for us would be if we felt somebody didn't want that kind of experience, or obviously if we had any concerns around somebody struggling to work and learn within a very, very diverse environment, that would be something that would be a concern for us, just because we do have so many amazing and interesting students on the Oxford MBA, and we do need students, as I said, who understand the opportunity that comes with that, but equally who are aware of the challenges that come with that, and who are open to navigating those and to learning kind of, the nuances that come with being part of such a diverse group as well. So those are just two, kind of collaboration and curiosity. As a general guide, I would honestly say, just try to be yourself as much as you possibly can. I think the candidates who do a really good job in the application are the ones who come across as being very authentically themselves. And I really mean that. I think at Said, one of the it's not a disadvantage, but I suppose the school is very well known as having a focus on impact. Our tagline is obviously impact from within, which can mean very different things to very different people, which we love. And so for us, we're really happy if someone comes to the application and says that, they're an investment banker, they want to progress within that sector after the MBA, they're not particularly interested in impact, they're kind of loosely interested in the idea of responsible business. Maybe they don't actually think that it's a possibility within the sector that they work in, but they're keen to explore it. There's as much value in having that person in the classroom for us as there is to have, a social entrepreneur who's made their career and their life and work all about kind of social impact and driving change in society. So best advice I can give you is just be yourself as much as you possibly can through the application. Great question, thank you. Perfect. Okay, I think we've gotten through most of the questions that are in here. I'm going to, let me just quickly look at the chat, because I know there were some questions in here, but I think Elena has been replying to most of them. I'm just going to glance quickly through here. Okay, I think Elena has, yes, I think Elena has answered most of the questions that were in the chat. Thank you, Elena. And we're almost at time. So let me just grab a final question from in here. Okay, there's two questions that we'll do before we finish up. One is a question from Janet, a great question because we haven't had any questions about this quite yet. So Janet is asking about the references and how important they are in terms of the application. Very important, Janet. I would say that it's the only opportunity that we have within the body of the application to get a sense of what other people feel it's like to work with you and what you're like in a work context. So yeah, they can really strengthen somebody's application. So I would definitely say have a think about who you want to ask to be your referees in advance of doing the application. Don't make the mistake of thinking that you need to choose kind of the most senior person within your organization. It doesn't even need to be your direct line manager if you don't feel that would allow you to put your best foot forward within the application itself. The key thing when you're choosing, I would say, is just choose two people who know you very well, who can write about you with a good level of detail and who are really going to advocate for you. You know, you want to choose two people who are going to not only outline to the committee, you know, what it's like to work with you, your strengths and your areas for development, but who are also going to tell the committee why they think that you would be a really good fit for Oxford and why they think you would add value to the MBA cohort. So really key to choose two people who know you well and can provide that level of detail about you. The references can be academic or professional. In my opinion, I think professional referees tend to work better for an MBA application. In particular, as a lot of our candidates are kind of 5, 6, 7 years out of academia by the time they come to apply for the programme. Oftentimes I find that maybe academic referees aren't able to provide the same level of relevant information that professional references can. So it is fine to have one of each if you want, but most candidates I think will go for kind of 2 professional, and in my opinion that can add more value. But all of the references that are provided within the application are read in full by the committee when your application is being reviewed, and they will take the information that's within those references into account when they're making a decision on your application. Great question, thank you. Okay, and I'm going to take this question as my final one. So this is a question from Helen. Thank you, Helen. Is it possible to give an idea of the questions asked in the video interview part of the application? I know there is a practiced environment. Yes, very happy to give some information on that. So the questions that you will be asked in the Kira online assessment are essentially looking to help us identify traits and behaviours that we feel like strong MBA candidates demonstrate. So they will be questions that will be focused on things like decisiveness, collaboration, vision, your leadership abilities, and integrity. So looking for behaviours like that, but they will come across as kind of very, very standard interview questions. And again, wanting to give you the opportunity to show the committee that you have specific experience that you can draw on from your career to date. That again will allow you to contribute once you're in the classroom. So for example, they'll come across there'll be questions like, tell me about a time you had to make a decision with very limited information available to you. Or tell me about a time you were part of a team and a conflict arose between 2 members. What happened and what role did you play, if any, in resolving it? So there'll be very, very standard interview questions like that, but they will be focused on those kind of key attributes or behaviours. You'll have 20 seconds to think of your answer and 90 seconds to record your answer within. There is a practice environment, as you mentioned. The questions in the practice environment will be different to the questions that you'll get when you come to do the assessment for real. So don't be kind of misled by the actual practice questions themselves. Definitely utilise the practice function, because it does just give you the chance to get familiar with the software and get rid of kind of any nerves or discomfort that you feel around video recording yourself answering the questions. But the questions themselves will be different when you come to answer live. And the final advice I'll give in relation to that is, please don't be tempted to use ChatGPT in the 20 seconds that you have to come up with a good answer to the question. It's very clear on the recordings when somebody is doing that, and you can sort of see them kind of glancing to the side and reading responses. And there are no right or wrong answers to the question, so there really is no value to you asking ChatGPT for an answer. We're really just looking, as I said, for you to be able to showcase that you have enough experience across your career and that you're able to kind of demonstrate these different traits and behaviours. So wishing you the very best of luck with that. And like that, we have just come to the end of the session. Thank you all so much for being so engaged and for sending across so many excellent questions throughout. We hope that many of you are, as I said, hoping to apply in our next stage deadline at the beginning of January. We look forward to staying in touch and supporting as many of you as we possibly can with that process. Thank you also to my colleague Elena, who's been furiously typing away answers in the background as well. Yeah, looking forward to staying in touch. Do reach out to our team if you have any additional questions at all. We're very happy to help and support in any way that we can. Wish you all the very best of luck with the application if you are hoping to apply in the next round, and looking forward to hopefully speaking to many of you in the future. enjoy the rest of your Monday.